Hello there, it's James B. Welcome to my podcast every Friday. A new person to speak with, somebody fascinating and sometimes famous, and listings, of course. So the first few minutes here, I'm going to tell you what's happening in the Toronto area. Then we're going to go over to visit with Ralph Benmergui. Actually, he's going to come here in front of this screen. We're going to make it look good, I promise. I want to thank Jason J. Brown for helping me with the green screens. I'm going to call him my producer because it sounds classy. Just a couple of friends making a podcast. And I want to thank BarberFinancial.com, Captain Paul. He has been sponsoring the show from the very first one, and this is the fifth one. And who else? Barbarian Steakhouse. Yum, yum. You know, that place is amazing. You have to go 7 Elm Street, bring your wallet. It's a really good restaurant, high class, old, yet brilliantly clean. I don't know how a restaurant from 1959 that looks exactly the same as it did in 1959 can be so darn clean. It's amazing. And new bathrooms, huge wine cellar, private parties upstairs. It's a great place to go. And I don't even eat meat. I just love their fish, and I love their vegetables, and I love barbarians. So thanks for the support. We're going to talk about some clubs and what's happening in town, and many of these clubs also support this podcast. I want to thank everyone who does. If you're not a nightclub, or you're not a band, or you just want to support, we have a Patreon page. Ta-da! Yeah, right up there. So you can also donate $5 a month and really help us out. I appreciate every single person who does something. You can do something, or you can do nothing. I'm asking you to do something. $5 a month? Can you? Thanks. If not, that's okay too. Okay, so here we go. Lula Lounge. Love this place. Lula.ca for information. Tonight, Roberta Hunt is performing. She has a New Orleans vibe about her. It's going to be up-tempo dinner music, that's for sure. Then you can have some dance lessons, then a live band, and then DJ Suave into the wee hours. So really you can go to Lula and just stay there all Friday. And I should mention on New Year's Eve, Salsa del Norte will be playing there till 3 a.m. Don't assume you can get in. Please go right away to pick up your tickets because New Year's Eve parties tend to sell out. And in between that, if you're interested, tomorrow night, Gary Morgan and Pan Americana are playing. 20-piece band. They do this every year, and it should be a hoot. So there's lula.ca for all that. HughesRoomLive.com. Love this venue, played there last week. We made $6,000 for Unison Fund, and I gotta say, the most impressive thing of all was passing the hat after a song, and everyone in the room put in $5, $10, or $20. We made like $1,000 in one song. It was so good of these people, and Hughes Room treat a band so well, and the audience gets great food and great sound. In fact, so many people commented on the food. I'm going to go back and eat there because I got their sound check and running around. I didn't want to eat too much, but the food looked great and everybody's raving about it. So it's the new improved HughesRoomLive.com. Check it out. Lots of good stuff happening there. The Winter Garden Orchestra are playing on Sunday. Susie Vinnick on Saturday, Don Ross, the great guitar player, tonight, and New Year's Eve, Diane Braithwaite and Chris Whiteley. All these shows are at 8:30, and you want to pick up tickets ahead of time. Over at the Rex, therex.ca for information on that. We've got Dave Young Quintet playing tonight at 9:45. Most of you know he was Oscar Peterson's bass player, but he's put out so many records, and he's probably busier now than he's ever been in his life. He puts out octet records with Terry Promain. He puts out duo, trio. So it's a quintet tonight, 9:45, to see the great bass player, Dave Young. And tomorrow, you could start as early as noon. Terry Wilkins, speaking of great bass players, Terry Wilkins is there with the Sinners Choir, and these three guys have amazing harmonies. And it's old-timey folky music, it's jazz, it's blues, it feels so good. If you like the movie Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, you probably would really like this band. And half of it's original, but you can't tell because all the songs sound so perfect and old-timey. So that's something at noon at the Rex, followed by George Lake Big Band at 3:30, Neon Eagle at 7, and one of my favorite sax guys, Alex Dean, is playing there at 9:45. So you could really just go there all day. Saturday, just spend all day there. I should mention that on New Year's Eve, Grooveyard performed. They've been doing this, I don't even know how many years, as long as I can remember. And they're amazing. So Grooveyard are going to play funk New Year's Eve. It's a $59 ticket. So that's the most expensive ticket you'll probably ever get at the Rex. But I bet you they won't have many tickets left. So check out therex.ca for that. Oldmilltoronto.com. As I thought, Alex Pangman is now completely sold out. But I can tell you that at the Homesmith Bar coming up next week, Thursday, Sophia Perlman and Adrian Ferrugia. Friday, Gord Sheard Trio, incredible Brazilian, a lot of bossa nova, just really, really amazing piano player with a great band. And Brian Blaine is doing blues at the Homesmith Bar on the Saturday, featuring Mark Bird Stafford on harmonica. So, oldmilltoronto.com, but too late for Alex Pangman, just want to let you know. My party on New Year's Eve, you could think I'm saving the best to last. I'm actually just being polite and talking about other people before myself. But I have a party New Year's Eve with Adam Jaymz up from LA. He sang a song at Hughes Room and he blew the roof off the joint. He ended the first set and people were actually screaming. They were having so much fun watching this guy. He has swagger. More Sinatra than Elvis Presley, but let me tell you, the guy is a lot of fun on stage, and he's going to get me up singing with him, and we're going to have a riot. So this is at La Rêve, and that's in the Junction, just north of Hughes Room. It's Dundas and Keel, and inexpensive Mexican food, lots of cool cocktails. You might just want bubbly, but you might also want some tequila-based cocktails, if you know what I'm saying. And your $50 ticket gets you in the door. The minute you walk in the door, you get a glass of bubbly, because really, why wait till midnight? And then the band is playing in the front room, DJ in the back room. It's only for about 60 to 80 people, so, we got about 30 tickets left. Pick them up right now, and there it is. Bemused is where you get tickets. You can call the Rev, but they're not going to be able to help you, so go to Bemused, pick up a couple of tickets, and I will see you there. George Kohler is in the band, the great bass player. He played with Molly and Holly. He played with Dizzy Gillespie, Ian Tyson, Lorena McKennitt, Peter Gabriel. He's played with everybody. Rob Scott wrote the hit song Hollywood with Michael Bublé. Great piano player, knows every song ever written. Great Bob Scott, not related to Robert Scott, but my best friend for a million years, and we played music together forever. He makes the drums fun. And Allison Young, the amazing sax player that everybody wants to book and everyone wants to work with. And on top of that, Heather Luckhart will be there kind of co-hosting with me and a whole bunch of other friends. So if you can make it, pick up your tickets now and I'll see you New Year's Eve. Now I think it's time to go see Ralph Benmergui. Love this man. I've been a fan of his since I was a kid, got to work with him, and we'll talk about his crazy career, and something tells me a little bit about spirituality. So here we go, Jaymz B Podcast, Ralph Benmergui, coming right up. Okay, spinning the dreidel. Hold on, don't stop it. I want to see what happens.
You have to guess which letter. I'm going to say none.
So did I. I was going to say none.
No.
I was going to say that.
That's a gambling game.
Yeah.
But it was used to teach, because you weren't allowed to practice the religion. So they, under the guise of a game, whatever letter it landed on, the teacher would start with that word, a word that started with that letter, to give you a lesson on Bible, on Torah. So you would land on Sheen, and you go, or land on Gimel, and you go Gvora, and then off you'd go on Strength, and Gavriel, and the Archangel, and you tell these whole stories. And the guards would, the Phoenicians would be walking around, they wouldn't think anything of it, right? And it's just a gambling game, don't worry about it, right?
Wow.
It's just playing with kids.
Well, I'm going to get to that question in a moment. And this thing kind of often starts mid-conversation. That's what I love about this. Okay, so first of all, let's start with Morocco, Tangier. You're born.
Yes.
How old are you? You're new.
I'm born!
When did you leave Morocco?
We left Morocco in 1957. I was 2.
Wow.
I'm the youngest. People always say, what was your family doing in Morocco? Like we happened to be on tour or traveling, and I accidentally was born there. And I have to say, well, we were there for 500 years. Kind of a rental, but a long-term rental.
Now, I believe the phrase is Sephardic Jew. How does that
Yes.
change from a regular Jewish person?
It's not regular. It's that there are different groups. So the Eastern European Jew, the Yiddish-speaking Ukrainian, Romanian, Lithuanian, Russian, German, those were called Ashkenazi Jews, like the Fiddler on the Roof version. Oi! Jawohl! Gestiegen! That's them. We are Sephardim. Sephardi literally means Spanish speaking. So we have our roots Middle Eastern to Iberian Peninsula, to Spain. And that's the golden age where Moors, Muslims, Jews, and Catholics all lived in harmony for a period of time in Spain. And there was the knowledge transfer of the Arab world through the Jewish translators into the European world. Mathematics, astrology, philosophy. Some of the great philosophers of Judaism are from the Sephardim, Maimonides being the biggest one that everyone knows about, and the Kabbalistic movement and Isaac Luria and all this stuff. So I come from that, and half of Israel, a little more than half of Israel, are my side. The Sephardic or Mizrahi Judy, Iraqi, Yemenite, all of them as well. And only in North America, 97% of the Jewish population is Ashkenazi. Right? What's the festival called in Toronto?
The Ashkenaz Festival.
Right. And I say to them, I take a certain amount of umbrage at the fact that you're calling this Jewish festival the Ashkenaz Festival. What about us? Who are we? But in North America, we're only 3% of the Jewish population. And Jews only make up 3% of the entire North American population.
So Jews are the steak and you're the chopped liver.
We're the chopped liver. No, we're actually the couscous. We're not the chopped liver. They're the chopped
How
liver.
important is that faith to you these days? How do you follow it strictly or?
Well, I'm a ordained spiritual director in the Jewish tradition. I'm writing a book on spirituality and aging. And I think that my own religious belief, I would categorize as Jewish renewal. So, Aviva Chernik, do you know Aviva?
Yeah.
She was in Jaffa Road, beautiful singer.
And a great band.
Yeah, and she's done a lot of work in renewal as well. So renewal is taking what was, it'd be like taking psalms in a church and taking one line of that psalm that you've sung for your entire life and you know backwards and you're just doing it and slowing it right down, right? So there's this one, I'll give you an example. There's this one prayer that usually a child will do on a Saturday morning. They'll get up in front of everyone and in a beautiful little cute voice go, Ashrei Yoshvei Veitecha, Oji Hallelujah Sela, and then it's call and response, and the congregation goes, blah, blah, blah. What some people do is they'll take that line and turn it into a meditation. So it becomes, Ashrei Yoshvei Veitecha, Odi Hallelujah, Odi Hallelujah.
Sounds beautiful.
And then you repeat it over and over for 10 minutes. And what you've done is gone, wake up. It's not by rote.
Right.
It's now new. So there's something beautiful about that I appreciate. And I think like a lot of people who, you have to figure out, first of all, are you allowed to use the G word, the God word, right? The four-letter word God, right? And if you do, what does it mean to you? So if I asked a group of people, what does God mean to them? At least half of them would say, it means nothing to me. I don't believe in God. Or some of them say, prove God, which the answer is simple, prove love. Can you hold it? Is it in a bottle? But your whole life revolves around whether you have it. And can I hold up? Did I just lose it? That's what love is for people. Well, God is about as solid as love. But for me, God is a different idea. It is not, most people give up on religion by the time they're an adolescent. They just go, this is ridiculous. Are you trying to tell me these fairy tales are real? They don't take the allegorical and metaphorical parts of it. So instead of it being the idea that God is a noun, a guy, kind of looks like you.
Yeah, beard, white hair, lives in a cloud.
Lives. We're getting closer.
Well, my cloud is more of a vape, but anyway.
And has a naughty and nice list. Okay, that's Santa Claus. That's not God, right? So to me, God is a verb. It's an actual process, a flow of the universal energy, right? That's perpetually creating. So a star explodes. The energy of that nova pushes together nearby gases into a new star. So it dies, it's reborn, it lives. We die, we're reborn, we live. We die. Everything around us is in this cycle. So for me, a spiritual life is one where you make yourself available to that flow of energy. In Hebrew, you call it the shefa, that flow. So to me, great music, performed beautifully, is done by people who are spiritually present.
And that can be any style of music,
Any
right?
style of music. Bluegrass. If you're there, you're there, right? Mm-hmm. It's not like, oh, it's only a love supreme. No, it's anything you want it to be. So to me, it's about the sincerity and the humility that you're just a little nothing in the middle of nowhere. I mean, if there's 500 million galaxies, not stars, galaxies, what are we? Right? So the only times you get that, because we live in an urban environment, we're still the biggest thing in the picture. If you take us out of that urban environment, so stand by an ocean, you know you're insignificant when you stand in front of an ocean. You know if you go out onto that rock and slip, you're done. Beautiful. Now I have my humility. Humility isn't, oh, don't mind me. Humility is knowing your place and the appropriate thing to do in that place. It could be leadership. It could be listening and following. It could be anything. But humility is to know, where am I? What is this? What should I be doing to serve this moment? As opposed to, did you see me walk in? Huh? Is that me? You saw? I've lived like that. Everybody, all of us have.
Right. You've been in showbiz for many years, so you had to balance a lot of stuff, things you believe, but then what people expect from you.
Okay, but it's all, yeah, absolutely. But it's also not healthy to walk around asking people to love you all the time. That's just crazy. But you might have the skill set that makes them actually think they kind of love you. That's great. Now that you have their attention, what do you want to say? What's your point? You know I used to do stand-up years ago.
Yes.
Half the guys were quite content to just have a killer act. And they would do it if there were 12 people, 6 people in the audience, or a full house. That was them. That was their act. Other ones, guys like Norm Macdonald. You could walk up to Norm Macdonald and go, Norm, go out and do a thing about being the guy in the middle of the back seat of a car. The guy who's made to sit in the middle. Okay. And he'd go out there and he'd kill right off the top of his head. You'd ask somebody else, certain guys I can think of, and they'd be like, are you crazy? And I'm like, what do you got to lose? There's 12 people in the audience at a Tuesday night in Toronto. Who cares? Just go for it. So I think people should take those chances.
You really liked emceeing, and
Yeah.
I would say you and Howie Mandel were kind of the masters back then at remembering what someone said half an hour ago and bringing it back to the stage. You would basically blow people away with your memory power as well as your jokes, and it was always fresh. You didn't have a routine.
No, I tried having a routine, and it was, I'd come from being in a really bad rock band, but you had at least a set list. You could look down and go, oh, okay, time won't let me. All right, we're doing time won't let me. Okay, great. With this stuff, I'd always be halfway through a bit and think, have I already done this bit in this set? Oh, man. And then I'd just finish it and they'd laugh and I'd think, oh, thank God, I thought I'd already done this bit. It's the second show of the night anyway. And I realized my heart wasn't in it, and I wasn't a bit writing machine. Like Mike McDonald, hours of material. An hour is like writing a book. That Mike could write hours of material. It just came out fully formed as a bit. Perfect. Right? Me, it'd be like, I know how to do this. I don't know if I want to do it. And then one night I was in Montreal. Leonard Barr was the featured act, who was 89. He died the year after he was in Montreal. And I think he was Dean Martin's uncle. That was his claim to fame. So Leonard Barr's out there, and he it's nice to be here tonight. Nice to be here any night. Sort of George Burns stuff. And he couldn't do the closing, the feature on the second show, because he was too old. So I had to go out and do it. And he opened. I'm like, oh my God. So I start doing my bits. And there's these guys in the front, and when I would work in Montreal, Moroccans would show up. There are a lot of Moroccans in Montreal. They'd see Benmergui, they go, that's a Moroccan name, I'm going to see that guy. So I thought these guys in the front were Moroccan. I say, for the first time I spoke to the audience directly. And I said, you guys Moroccan? And the guy said, no, we're Italian. I'm trying to think of what to say, and I go, oh, there's 500,000 Italians in Toronto. All of them stole my bike. And the place goes nuts. It explodes in laughter. And everyone realized, including me, that I just said that at that moment. And I thought, this is where the power is, in the moment. And guys like Bob Saget, Saget,
absolutely underrated and hilarious. Anyone who has seen him live is nothing like his TV appearances.
Right, and you learned from every comic who showed up. And Saget taught me that you can have 3 or 4 bits about people in the audience that are the same all the time. So he'd find a young couple, and he'd make them the new young couple that were Barbie and Ken. And he'd have a joke about a snap-on crotch, that Ken has a snap-on crotch, But he could use those every night. But he had archetypes. He'd find them in the audience, and he'd hang his hat on them. In between, total stream of consciousness. So I learned, just make sure you've got a few people that you're always going to be able to, or a few bits that you know you're going to do when the pace is slowed down. And in between, trust the audience. So you literally would ask them any question. Well, what do you do for a living? I'm a lawyer. Oh. And the whole audience laughs. So I haven't done anything. I'm just like, I know there's a tension now because everybody has an opinion on a lawyer. Right. I think, oh, were you, how did you grow up, Were you religious? How did you grow up? No, I grew up nothing. Oh, United. Right. So there was all these little fun moments you'd have with people, right? And it was great. I loved it. I loved it.
Now, you were in Ryerson studying journalism when you were called to Winnipeg.
Well, Stuart McLean was my broadcast teacher, and he had just started teaching at Ryerson. And we'd become friends, because I was a mature student, right? I was 27 when I went back to school. And I was in this program, great program. And I was going to go into my 3rd and final year. I was even going to be one of the editors of the Ryersonian. I was very excited. And Stuart said to me, you don't need to be here. Like, you should just get on with it. There's a job open for a researcher in Winnipeg. You should apply for it, for CBC Radio. And I'd been listening to Peter Zosky for a few years by then, and I just thought, I just want to be in public broadcasting. I thought Peter was a genius at radio, just a genius. And I wish more people could hear just the way he did what he did. But anyway, I got the job. And years later, Stuart, and I went to Winnipeg. Years later, Stuart, I was producing a Christmas special that Stuart was in, right? It was a Stuart McLean Christmas special for CBC Television. And we did it out in Belleville, so we had to drive out to Belleville together. And then he goes, you're the only student I ever said you should go and just not finish the program. I think that might have been a mistake. And I said, what do you mean? He said, no, I don't mean you weren't ready. I said, oh, you mean the fact that I didn't get a degree and for the rest of my life I don't have a stinking degree? And he said, yeah, I think that's what I mean. I said, well, thanks, Stuart. You should have just said, you should have said nothing. But you know what? Everything's a twist of fate. I went to Winnipeg. I started as a researcher in current affairs. I remember booking Emo Phillips, the comic.
An incredible comic who is actually truly strange on or off stage.
Oh my God. So I'm pre-talking him. You phone whoever's going to be on and you do a little pre-talk, and then you prepare questions and intro and a reason why you're talking to this person for the host, who was someone who turned out to be one of the best mystery detective writers in Canadian history, Louise Penny. So Louise was there as the host. So I'm interviewing him, and he's got really good stuff, right? Like, I've only been in Winnipeg for about 3 days, and it's been raining the whole time, but it's okay. It's a dry rain. And I thought, that's a great prairie joke. Everyone says it's a dry cold. That's funny. So I think, great, he's going to be on with Louise. I'm driving to Thompson, Manitoba, because a friend of mine's getting married up in Leaf Rapids, up in hell of nowhere. And this guy goes on the air. So I'm listening to it. This is the next day, and I'm listening to it on the radio. And he sits down, and Louise goes, and joining me now is comedian Emo Phillips. Hello, how are you? Oh, you're one hot bag of estrogen, mama.
On CBC.
Oh my God. I come in on Monday. Everybody's running up to me. Never book comics again. Never book a comic. He's a comic. What do you think he was going to do?
And how many years in Winnipeg before you came back to
I did
Toronto?
2. In the second year, I did Nightlines with Ross Porter. That's where I met him. And we did an all-night radio show. And we really did it in the spirit of classic FM radio, where you put together a set based on music, not genre. So you could have Brandenburg Cherda going into Electric Light Orchestra, going into Waylon Jennings. It didn't matter. You just kept moving through whatever was the right mood. Liam Lacey wrote a really nice article in the Globe about the show at that point. And then I went back to Toronto to do Primetime, which was a show about Canada show about showbiz.
Right, and
on radio.
And your TV show with Valerie Pringle, that
was after that.
That was a very big hit, though. That was
Valerie was already a star, and anybody who worked with her looked great. So I just had to go sit in the seat and go, how do you do this? Right, just lean forward and don't look like you're reading off the camera. Thank you, Valerie.
Now, before we worked together on the Friday night show with Ralph and Mergui,
right,
you sang with my band at the Cameron House, and I think you shocked a lot of people because you were a really good singer. You were mentioning you had a bad band a long time ago. How long had you been singing?
Well, I look at I have 4 boys, right? So I look at my boys and I see if one of them sings as he walks around. To me, that's what's important. I'm not looking for, do you sing better? It's just, do you sing as a way of thinking, a way of being? So I was doing that my whole life. I was a kid walking home from school. In those days, you just went home by yourself, ate some food, and went back to school, right? Not like today. And I would just walk and sing and walk and sing. When you're alone and life is making you lone, you can always go. And what are you, like 9? Downtown, right? Having a great time. So I always sang like that, and I sang in choirs, madrigal choir and regular choir. I love being in a choir. I remember once at school we did the Hallelujah Chorus, and we were all too cool for school. It was high school. But man, when we all, as a group, went, Hallelujah, 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 and we all stopped, and all of us were like, oh my God, like you were just somewhere else. It was like, I just went past the is anyone looking at me part. I don't care.
Right, I'm in the moment now.
I'm just sick of my brains out. So we did that. It's the one thing I miss the most, is singing. I still think, I'd love to just be in a cafe and sing with somebody with a guitar and just a piano and just sing music. Because at my age now, there's a frailty to the voice. You're not all power.
Right.
Right? There's nice little wavers in it.
Well, I think at the end of this interview, I think we'll be playing your video for Super Elf, which is a song I wrote with Howie Moscovich with you in mind to sing it. Not Super Ralph, but Super Elf.
It's the only one I've ever recorded, and I think, that's it? I did a Christmas parody song, Super Elf? That's it? Yeah.
We really thought it would be big, like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, like bring in a new character for
the
Christmas.
new Burl Ives.
Super Elf.
Always thinking marketing, James.
That's right. Getting to the Friday night show. So your very first, I think it was your very first episode, first season, first show, Scott Thompson and Don Cherry on the same show.
That was Joe Baudelaires' idea.
Absolutely hilarious and engaging television.
Right. So I said, Joe Baudelaires passed away. I said, why did that work so well? And he said, well, I wanted to put together 2 things that should never be together. Oil and water, right? A screaming queen and a screaming jock. Go for it. And God love Don. because Scott was all over it. But God loved Don because Don managed to find it in himself to understand improv, to not say no, to say yes to everything that was going on, as Scott, snuggled into him. And then as soon as it was over, Don, got up, everybody's applauding in the audience, and he just walks over to him and he goes, "Fun show, thanks, see ya. Yeah, good luck, have a great time." Little did he know.
Yeah, so you had Leonard Cohen, Celine Dion, you had so many big stars, and the band. You actually had the band.
Yeah.
I mean, that to me was the biggest thing ever, is to meet those guys.
Yeah.
Rick Danko, the late great bass player, but he was fantastic, and Garth and everybody. So you had all this amazing music, yet the critics were pretty cruel.
Well, you know what? I don't see it as cruel. When I look at the tape from that, I see that I was not the right guy to do that show. I had too much left of a serious side to me to be able to do whatever you need to do to get the laugh and to kill.
Right.
There were other guys who would have done it.
Right. The interview parts, though, were very well done, but there was so much other stuff
Peter
going on.
Mansbridge took me out to lunch at one point and said, "What are you doing? Like, you know how to interview people. You've got these cue cards. What's going on?" I said, "The whole thing is so managed. There's so many people watching from inside the building and managing and micromanaging and all over it, and everybody's
I saw
agenda."
3 people putting a lavalier microphone on you.
Yeah.
3 people.
Yeah.
Right.
So the whole thing was too much fuss. And, the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band had an album, Will the Circle Be Unbroken, and then Will the Circle Be Unbroken too. And in the second one, Emmylou Harris has a little thing she says before this beautiful song called Riding Alone. It's just a heartbreak of a song. And she says, over the years, we've all gotten into the making of records, and we've lost the living room. Because we just had to get it perfect, because there was just enough toys to keep us busy, right? And she said, and today I think we got some of that living room back into the music. And then the song starts, and it is, about, when one part of a partnership, a marriage dies, and you end up riding alone. And it was just gorgeous. So to me, I lost the acoustic sense of a show. It all became about go bigger, go bigger. And really, all I wanted to do when they first spoke to me about doing the show is I literally wanted to stand there in a tuxedo and be Ed Sullivan. I just wanted to go, and here's the next act. But then it became about do the stand-up at the beginning, do the interview then, do this then. It was just, it's Canadian talent I wanted to celebrate. But it didn't translate, and it's not the critics' fault. Their job is to say, this makes me feel uncomfortable. I'm not enjoying this show.
You actually, the second season, you actually had a skit that you had kind of a regular bit where critics would diss you, but actually on your own show, watching it from the green room.
Yeah.
That was funny.
John Haslikoff.
That was very clever.
Yeah, but at that point, there's a kind of a, I'm not that guy. Like, I'm not the, there's just something about me, I think, that's too media literate and too critical of the whole idea, where I couldn't help it. What was great was that Gary Shandling's show would be on after we'd finished taping, right?
And it was reality. You'd finish your show and then go watch TV and go, that just happened to me today. Everything that they're talking about is real.
Yeah. No, look, the other part of it is I replaced Tommy Hunter, for God's sake. And who did they replace me with?
Rita McNeil.
There you go.
So
what's Canada?
That's some real Canadian bread with some brainy guy in the middle, right? Exactly.
Ralph Benmergui from Toronto. No, I don't think so.
Right.
So what I learned was that and this is not a criticism of us, this is who we are. We are a low status people. We enjoy things when they're presented to us in low status. If things are presented to us in high status, we feel like, go to the States if you want to do something like that. Don't do that here. If I'd done the same show in the States, I would have been a god. Mm-hmm. I was like, wow, look at that thing, must cost $1 million a show.
Yeah.
Right? But that was the wrong approach for here. The next show I did after that was 15 stools in the atrium of the CBC Town Hall show for 5 years.
Absolutely. And another hit.
Well, but it was this big.
Right.
Right? because I realized, no, go low status. This is who we really are. We're not taking ourselves so seriously as a people. We don't stand there singing. When I see Canadians with a hand over their heart singing the national anthem, I think, no. We can barely remember what the changes have been to the second verse. We have to read them off the Jumbotron. Because we're like, did they change that again? Is it God or man? Oh, I don't know what's going on here. And that's good.
Yeah.
That's the kind of nationalism I like. Awkward, right. Self-deprecating, that's us. And I tried to do something bigger than it should have been.
Yeah. Did you have a favorite guest? I mean, I can tell you my favorite was David Suzuki because he was optimistic for a change about we want to do the right thing, but we've got to make it easy on people to recycle, to fight back against injustices. Did you have a favorite guest?
I would say Leonard Cohen. But then, I'm not sure if it's because of that, because that was just a 5-minute interview. But I did have one of my favorite moments with him where I asked him about love is not a victory march, it's a cold and broken hallelujah. And he just looked at me and went, wow, Ralph, you're bumming me out. and then I said, oh, I bummed out Leonard Cohen.
Right.
So I love that moment. That was fun.
You moved from radio to TV to radio to politics. I want to ask you a little bit about that. Green Party, Liberal Party, how did you find being in the middle of all of that?
Well, I'll tell you, the two different experiences, right? So I work for people. On the progressive side of the scale, I work for people, not necessarily for parties. So I'm not a Kool-Aid guy, right? So when I worked with Glenn Murray, with the Liberals, I was working with Glenn. I'm going to see Glenn, probably tonight. So I was working with Glenn, and I was working with Glenn because he had green credentials to me. He wasn't in that portfolio at the time. We worked together in research and innovation and in training colleges and universities. But I'd spent years as a journalist talking to politicians. I'd wanted to know what it was like on the other side of the door. And it is not the same as journalists might think they know what's going on back there. And I certainly thought I did. I did not. It is retail, transactional. It has all kinds of elements in it that are unsavory in terms of ambition. But on the other hand, what people don't understand is that half the people in there are in there for the right reason. And they're not appreciated for it. You're never doing enough for your constituents. Where were you for Polish polka night? Well, I haven't seen my family in 3 weeks, and I kind of stayed home. Well, but it's our Polish polka night. Okay, I haven't seen my family in 3 weeks. I thought I'd stay home. They think they're overpaid. They're not. Their job prospects when they leave the job are much lower than people think. You have been tainted by partisanship. So there's all kinds of people who don't want you in their club. So there's that. And the other part is that you stay in it, or those people stay in it, if they can make some little differences once in a while. But we have devalued the public good and the public servant completely. We think the people who make millions and millions are heroes of some kind, like a president of the United States. But I really admired the people who really slugged it out. So worked with him. And when you're in there, every party, the problem with it is it's binary. Every single party is, we are absolutely right, and you're absolutely wrong. If you tried that in a marriage, it'd be over in 3 weeks. And yet that's how they run their politics. So as long as we have first past the post electoral system, you will have this ridiculousness, because the power is so badly concentrated in 40% of the vote is 100% of the power. If you have proportional representation, which all of us should be encouraged to promote, then you have coalitions. Stephen Harper acted as if a coalition was a treasonous act, which is despicable as far as democracy and the right to democracy for people is. It is a beautiful thing to have to compromise, to be able to say, you know what, we can't just do this and do that, or we'll lose those people. And if we lose them, we lose power. So we better temper our offering. There's nothing to temper. The concentrations of power in Canadian politics at the provincial and federal level are of obscene proportion, obscene. 7 people run those governments. Cabinet ministers have almost no power except for maybe 4 of them in each government. Everyone else is just given marching orders. Guy calls from central office, says, this is the way we're going to do it. This month's spotlight is this. Do it. So that was very eye-opening and disappointing. Then I worked with the Green Party with Mike Schreiner, because I love Mike, and I deeply care about the planet. So I was the director of communications for his last campaign, where we won. He got in. He's now the MPP for Guelph. Couldn't happen to a better guy, gives his heart and soul to it, smart, understands policy, understands people. That's the kind of person you want in politics. And believe me, if he wasn't that kind of guy, I wouldn't say it.
Right. So your view then of what's happening right now, and I mean day by day, by the time this airs, which is only a few days away, it might be completely different. But with your view on what do you have any prediction on American politics? Do you have any prediction on what might happen in the next little while?
You know, Chris Hedges, a wonderful writer, American dissident, unrelenting. Like, you know, Steve Paikin interviewed him over his last book, which is called America, the Farewell Tour. And Steve said, well, after finishing your book, Chris, I can't decide if I should kill myself tomorrow or today. I just can't. So, and, you know, because it is so unrelenting in its criticism of American society. But what he says about Trump is that Trump, it's not about Trump. Trump, in Hedges' words, is the vomit. That's America vomiting its toxicity out, and this is what it looks like. It looks like him. Right? If it wasn't him, they would have found somebody else. Remember, the Tea Party movement started way before Trump.
Yeah.
Right? But underneath all that, the thing people should be very careful about is deciding that the other guys are stupid. And the kind of social media environment we live in, people say things that if they're in the same room, they get punched in the face for saying. Horrible, rude, awful, irresponsible, reckless things because they have no accountability. So the discourse is shot. That's a given. But what I think has to happen for people is they have to start realizing that they're not taxpayers. They're citizens. If you're a taxpayer, you're a customer. Where's my service? By the way, I don't want to pay for it. But where the hell is my service? Right? Perfect consumer extension of consumer life is to be a taxpayer, which the conservative frame created 40 years ago and is now firmly entrenched in every. When I work with politicians as a communications guy, I say, if I see it in a speech, I just go, you got to get that out of your speech. Citizen. I'm a citizen. I have rights, but I also have duties and I have obligations. So until people can, you know the movie WALL-E? Mm-hmm. Okay, you know everyone is in this enormous chair. They're all enormously obese, and they're being spoon-fed junk food. They literally can't stand on their own 2 feet. We're there. That's what we're doing. So until we can stop doing that, look, we're willing to kill the planet because we can't get off this stuff. We are on IV, and we can't pull the needle out of our arm. It's too much. Every year that we continue to do this is another year where you can think of your own kid on the endangered species list. Literally, your kid is now on the endangered species list. We are an endangered species. And yet, I can go outside today and go, "What a nice day." So I can't feel it. And a human would rather be given. So what Trump and Ford and everyone sells is nostalgia. The myth of 1953 is, it's okay. Don't worry about it. We all have jobs for life. We're all going to have $1 for a beer. We're all going to be fine together. We're all white. Don't worry about it. It's all good. And the human condition is one where you want comfort and safety and survival. So simple answers to complex problems and someone to blame for your problems. And as an immigrant, I'm a little sensitive to that.
Right.
As a Jewish person, I'm a little sensitive to that because eventually they'll turn towards me again.
So when you're talking to people about spirituality, this is kind of wrapping up with your background in entertainment, your obvious care for the planet, and your way of looking at politics and spirituality. Does spirituality always must come first for you? Like, is that the thing that you would? use to get over the hump of some of these other things?
Yeah, it could be. I mean, I think a spiritual life is a life connected to being available to what's really going on, being present, right? So stand up. It doesn't matter. If you're not present, the audience doesn't get it, right? You don't go, they stink.
Yeah.
No, actually, you stink because you didn't connect with them.
Right.
It's not their job to make you, funny.
Right.
Your job is to make them not even think about whether you're funny. They're just there.
Yeah.
Right? So I think spiritually, I think it helps if you have a spiritual context for your life, no matter what you're doing, because what you're really talking about is understanding this is a sacred endeavor. Not, it's sacred. This is your life. This isn't a rehearsal for your life. This is your life. And I think the older you get, and then when certain things, either people you love pass away, or you have a health scare, something reminds you that you're mortal, that this is just a shot. Don't waste it, and be grateful to something bigger than yourself. Make sure there's something bigger than yourself in the picture, because otherwise it's narcissistic. You're just running around going, did you see what the thing I did? It's Mr. Saturday Night, right? It's Billy Crystal. Did you see the thing I did? And what happens at the end? Him and his brother are having a huge fight, and he goes, they're screaming at each other. His brother has been taking his crap for his whole life, screaming at him, and he goes, well, what? Billy Crystal's character, what do you want from me? And he says, what do I want from you? You could have been nicer. That's all I wanted. You would have gotten everything you got, just you could have been nicer. So a spiritual life to me is a reminder that you can do everything you want to do, but have a center. Come from something, right? Try to be decent. I'm a great dad at 9:20 in the morning, making French toast for my kid on a weekend, or my kids on a weekend, and I'm thinking, this is a dad. At 10:40, I'm sarcastic. I'm yelling at a 9-year-old, and I'm just like, this is a dad? Disgusting. So it's not like I say, the problem people have is they think spiritual means, oh, I'm perfect and you're not. Mm-hmm. It just means you're trying to come from someplace a little more sincere. That's all it means to me.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. And one last thing, when do you think your book will be out? Sometime next year?
Yeah, I'm hoping. I'm about 50,000 words in. I'm supposed to submit to my literary agent 3 chapters now, which I'm going to do as soon as the holiday is over. And then they're going to shop it around. It is about aging and spirituality. It is about entering the autumn of your life. And work. What does work look like when you're in your 60s? What does love look like in your 60s? All the way on. What does culture do about old people? 5% of characters in movies and television are over 65. And overwhelmingly, they are grumpy, smelly, perverted, cranky, inappropriate. They're not beautiful, loving human beings. They're the punchline. They're Golden Girls with the grandmother saying, I don't even know, I think I smell your underwear. What the hell is that? It's Granny from Beverly Hillbillies, right?
Right.
That's old people. It's time to change that. We live a lot longer than we used to. We should do it with some dignity.
Thanks, Ralph.
Pleasure, James.